I'll switch back.
No, put it on, please.
No. I don't. We don't want to make this. We want to make this a serious meeting here. We don't want no games and fun back here.
We got Disney World or Mackinac Island in the background, and you've got me in your background. Oh, thank God there's an adult in the room now, gentlemen. Straighten up.
Carl, just be ready. I may need you to get one of those books for reference, okay?
You were live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Groseal's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission. The time is 7:30, and we call the meeting to order. I'll go in lieu of doing the Pledge of Allegiance, since it's hard to actually do that all together. We'll just move right into the roll call. So a new procedure for those of us that have not been a part of many public meetings yet, I believe is part of the state's extended public orders and allowing the meetings to take place via Zoom, that we're supposed to do a roll call vote and let people know exactly where we are logging in from. So with that, I will say, Brian Pollock is here, and I'm in my basement here at Groseal Township. Carl, would you like to go next?
Thank you. Carl Bletcher, Groseal, Michigan.
Christine Licky, Groseal, Michigan, from my home.
Alan?
Alan Valaquette from my home in Groseal, Michigan.
Thank you all. I know that John said he might be late or might not be able to make it because of a hockey game with his kids. And hopefully Rebecca will be able to join us later on. So we do have quorum, so we can move ahead with the agenda. I'll ask, does anybody have anything specifically on the agenda? I mean, anything, look over the agenda and see if there's anything that needs to be changed. Hearing none, we can move forward with that. And did everyone have a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting?
Move to approve.
Moved by Carl. Is there a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Alan. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion. Is there anybody that does not agree in that regard? Hearing none, motion passes. Last but not least, on the open items, I have public comment. Is there anybody that would wish to make a public comment about something that's not specifically on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll close public comment and go into bike path maintenance. So, for everyone to know, there is a bike path maintenance budget that was shared with township officials. So you can see it up on the screen over here, which generally shows our expenditures. I'm going to go in the next slide and show more details in this regard, but you should all have this for your reference, and it should be a part of township records if anyone's interested in getting an additional copy. But specifically, we have approximately $327,000 for this coming fiscal year total. That includes the approximately $97,000 that is generated from the millage each year, in which that millage runs through 2025, and we have $230,000 in our fund from last year. So that's how we get to the $327,000. Based on the past maintenance activities and things that we're looking to do, we have approximately $125,000 to $170,000 in costs that are already allocated for this year. Much of that is fixed costs in regards to routine maintenance. So that includes mowing, sweeping, debrushing, winter maintenance, equipment repairs, as well as, administrative items in regards to, helping keep the bike paths going. So those are costs that, we will generate every year. Moving forward, if we think that those should be adjusted, we can do so, but that's based on the information that, past commission, the commission has done in past years. Additionally, we have, itemized about, $45,000 in routine repairs. So that includes, the allocations that might not be spent in a given year, but, we're saving them up over the time period. So, we're, in order to make sure that we're not really, that we're being fiscally constrained, we save from one year and we might not spend it one year, but spend it in the next year. So maybe it's rather than 45,000 each year, we might hold off one year and then you have $90,000 to spend in the second year. But the examples of those routine repair items would be like bridge staining, the seal coat and crack sealing, pavement markings and signage. So additionally, as I mentioned at our meeting before, we have approximately $84,000 remaining in bike path repairs that were authorized in late 2019. So, that work did not get done in 2019. It started in 2020, a little bit of a late start in regards because of COVID. But that contract still remains. And so I believe that Asphalt will be doing some full depth repairs this coming year. So that's why we have this range over here, is that, we have this $84,000 that's still out to see like what we're going to get for that, but we could potentially spend, another, $45,000 in routine items, to cap onto that. So the high end, we're looking at, around $170,000 spending this year. On the low end, about $125,000. So, that doesn't include, other items that, might be coming up. So just in general, if we, after we spend that amount, we'll have, approximately, at the high end, $200,000 in the bank at the end of this fiscal year. So, this time next year in March, that's what we would be looking at having before the new allocation. So is there general questions about the bike path maintenance budget?
Brian, I do have a question just to clarify. So this might come up in somebody's a review of it, that we have an administrative expenses and it's totaling $1,945. Could you clarify to everybody what that expenditure is for and how that's distributed? So it's clear to everybody that those administrative expenses are not for us. They're for other costs associated with keeping the budget and doing the administrative things they need to do.
Correct. So, I mean, we need someone to be able to, keep tabs of the actual budget. We contract funds out in order to, do projects. And so, if you do bids or, you do accounts payable, different items in regards to, paying staff in order to help out with, mowing or, other maintenance activities. I believe that's, a line item to, help call, take care of staff allocations in that regard. Carl, do you think you can add a little onto that, or did I hit it on the head?
That is a percentage that the board uses to apply for administrative costs that typically come out of the general township offices. Ann Darsnick prepares a lot of the budget. You have payments that go for vendors. You have some of the costs there that are fixed overhead, and the township previously has determined that it should be X amount, a percentage of the total budget. So that is something that is used for paying people at the township that do some work for us. It is fixed throughout the budget, so it's not just a number that is tagged on BPAC. It is also consistent with police, fire, and all of the other agencies that are involved, airport, Commerce Park, as well as rec. So it defrays some of the costs and actually reflects some of the true costs of having a budget implemented, having vendors paid, and having some of the requests for proposals, things like that paid for.
Thank you, Carl. That was real interesting, and I even learned a lot on that myself. Thank you again.
Great. Any other questions? Hearing now, we can move on. Next item I'd like to talk about is bike path bridge. And I apologize for the typo here in my PowerPoint here, but in general, we do have 3 bridges that are a part of the bike paths. We have one that should probably be a major discussion about tonight and like moving forward with the bridge over the thoroughfare canal at Meridian near Ferry. And then we have another bridge across from Meridian Elementary School, near the south end. And then our last bridge is on Grove Road in between Meridian and South Point. So, we have, routine items that we need to do on that in regards to staining, as well as, periodic repairs that need to be done based on the structural integrity of the actual bridges themselves. So I know that our the person who has been doing a lot of the work for us and providing us guidance, Wes Pfeiffer, is here with us today. And Wes, if you're prepared to talk with us, we'd love to hear about your take on what you've learned about our bridges this year so far. Let's see. Wes, are you here? Well, while we're waiting for him to, oh, he's just unmuted. Wes, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, sir.
There we go. All right. Yeah, we have a 2 and 4 year schedule of maintenance that we put together back in 2015. And what that does is every 2 years we stain the decks, and every 4 years we stain the decks and the handrails inside and out. During the time, we look at deck repairs for deck boards broken, etc., or handrail spindles, top boards, etc., that needs to be replaced. 2 years ago, when we was doing the staining of the decks and handrails on that cycle in 2019, I looked at the number of deck boards that was getting to be questionable and started to need to be replaced on the what we call the thoroughfare bridge. And it was getting to a point where it was going to be more advantageous just to replace the entire deck. So what we did is put a heavy coat of stain on them, and we didn't replace any boards in 2019 on that bridge. And there was also discussion with Wayne County at the time that there was a come in and possibly do the bridge across the thoroughfare canal, Meridian Road, and doing that in 2021. And that hasn't happened. However, it's been confirmed that they will be doing this work on Meridian Road in 2022. So my recommendation on the thoroughfare bridge is to let it stand just as it is. Do not do any work to it at all. Let's see how bad the county screws it up when they do the work on Meridian Road, and then go from there. Right now, we're currently, before we even power wash it, just on a visual inspection. When I walked it last week, there's approximately 40% of the deck boards need to be replaced. Once we power wash it, we'll probably get another 5 to 8% more boards will be exposed. That will be questionable at that time. Once we get to that point where we're starting looking at 50% replacement, at that point, it doesn't make sense to be replacing individual boards. It's time just to replace the deck. It's the bridge. I believe I built that in 1995 or 96. So it's getting to the end of its useful life on the deck. One of the other things that I've been looking at is the top rail on the handrail. That is always the problem area, whether we're doing the bridge deck only or the railing, the top rail almost always has to be addressed. And what I'm looking at is, I think, to save some time and money for the township, that when we go to do the thoroughfare bridge, we replace that top rail with a composite board, a 1x6 composite. We also will cut the post flush with the top horizontal boards and lay that across, so it would be more like the observation deck handrail, where there would be just a smooth run. But what that will allow us is to increase this time cycle on the railing staining from 4 years to 6 years. Because it's really the top rail that's really is what's driving the staining on the top, on the railing most of the time. Every time we do the deck, I always do a spot staining on the top rail on just individual boards or pieces. But this will eliminate the need to stain the handrail as frequently. It doesn't. The stain we put on has a 10-year life to it as a residential stain. But as a commercial stain, with the amount of traffic we have on the bridge decks, after 2 years, it's showing its wear and it needs to be put back down to protect the wood. Since we're only going to give 1 more year of use on this bridge before Wayne County puts it into unoperational mode, again, I suggest we just pocket our money on this bridge for the time being and move on to the other ones. With that being said, Grove Row was the second bridge that needs a deck replacement, and they're both, these bridge decks are pretty much in the same shape. Grove Row is about a 40% replacement doors that needs to be done before we power wash, and the top rail on that boardwalk is always the worst of any of the bridges, because that one is in the sun more than any of the others, and the top rail just takes a beating. So I would suggest that we also, on this one, cut the post flush and go to a 1x6 composite board on top of that. That would, again, extend our railing timeline to 6 years instead of 4. And it would be a better thing with no splinters or raised wood that kids can catch their hands and stuff on as they go by. And then Meridian was redone in 2019, and that just needs to be stained. The deck needs to be stained, and there's a couple of spot stands on the top rail. I think I counted 3 of them. We'll take a sand or 2 and just hit it with some stain, and that bridge will be back to 100%. Perfectly. Yeah, Carl.
2 questions, Wes, if I may interrupt just very briefly. I'm looking at the picture that Brian has of the bike path on.
Yes.
On there. You have the orange webbing, which is calculated to keep the pedestrians and bicyclists off of the bridge. Immediately above that, I see posts. Are those the corner posts that you're talking about, or the runner posts?
That all the line posts, including the end posts or the corner posts, have a it's about a 5-inch extension above the top rail.
It looks like
we'll cut those flat,
okay.
Flush with the 2x12 that is right below that top rail.
Right.
And then the 1x6 will run right over top of those post heads. That will also eliminate another problem. If you walk any of the bridges, you'll see that another place where the top rail fails all the time is the notch around the post. We take that 5.5-inch board, and we end up with a 1.5-inch finger going around that board, and that just snaps in time.
Sure.
I don't know how many boards I've replaced because of it.
Second question, the material that many of us are familiar with is Trex, the man-made composite. That used to be, before all of the production problems with COVID, used to be about 3 times as expensive, But what's the life on that expected to be, Wes?
That life is expected to be 30 years. I mean, they basically say it's indefinite, but nothing's indefinite. The biggest thing that will happen with that, it will be in a location that we're using it at, as that top rail with that 1x board, will be sun fade.
Okay.
Because there's really no traffic on it, and it is fully supported the entire run of it. So it's not going to get any warp or anything along those lines. But that's a great question, because that brings up another point. On the Grove Road Bridge, if we do go with that, my wholesaler right now, I gave Brian some numbers just before the meeting, but we can put composite boards down for about $4,000 more than will be to redeck with pressure treated wood at this time. That includes the savings that we won't be staining the deck, so we got that savings as well, and then the price of the pressure treated wood right now versus the price of composite or skin closer in line. Wood is right now is crazy. In fact, if we stay with the 5/4 board on the top rail, that piece of wood, I say a 10-foot length of wood, will cost me as much, if not just a hair more, than what a 2x6 will cost in the same length. 5/4 board is at an extreme premium right now. Talking to my wholesaler, he thinks it's just been too many homeowners being locked up at home and building too many decks. And it's hard to come by, and they're charging a premium for it. But we've always talked about what's the cost to do composite on the bridge versus the thing. And I've always been against it, because to even get close to the price, we had to use a 1x composite board. Well, commercially, that's not going to work on these bridges. But right now, my wholesaler can give me a 2x6 square edge. Just looks like a 2x6 wood board, 2x6 composite, and they're going to be 20-foot long. So I have to cut them in half, etc. But those decks are 10 feet wide, and again, we're only looking at about a $4,000 increase in cost to go composite, and then we eliminate the staining on those to where we're down to every 6 years we'll be staining the handrail on Grove Road. Be a nice cost savings. Meridian, the way Meridian is set up with that railing and stuff, there's no reason to change that railing. It's all in the shade, and that's a 2x6. 2x6 top rail on there to start with. It's a heavy piece of timber going down through there. That holds up really nicely. It doesn't, splinter and cap and warp like the 5/4 board does on that top rail. But yeah, that's it. Back in 2 years ago, both those bridges were coming up to be decks to be replaced, and pick one. I just said, well, the worst one first cost wise is thoroughfare. We'll pick that one first and get it out of the way. But with the Wayne County schedule, again, let that thing sit, just like we did Meridian back in 2017. We didn't touch it because we knew we was coming back in and doing that deck, so we saved that money. I suggest you do the same thing on the thoroughfare bridge this year. With that, Brian, you got the other information I gave to you. Oh, Carl, yeah. Your mute's on, Carl.
I understand that bridges on the bike path were built because we had federal funds involved. They had to be able to withstand a certain amount of weight for vehicles that would be responding for emergencies and things like that. Do we have any issues with, when we look at all of the life of the bridges, the 25, going on 30 years here. Are we looking at any compromised integrity on the understructure?
No, the Thoroughfare Bridge, Carl, and the Grove Road Bridge, which was built afterwards, was a MDOT road design.
Okay,
Those are 15-ton pilings with 4x12 solid cross members and 4x12 joists on 12-inch centers. Those two bridges, basically, you could drive a garbage truck across it. You're not going to hurt them there. I mean, it's a road design.
Mm-hmm.
The Meridian Bridge was the very first one built back 1990, 89, someplace in there. That was designed with our township engineer, and that was put on 12-inch centers for tire treads, and then the other joists are 16-inch on centers. It doesn't have to have near the capacity of the other two bridges, but it would still take a utility truck, which could still run down through that without a problem.
okay.
But at this time, there's no concern with the 4x12s in either one of those bridges. Every time we pulled up boards on the 4x12s were still solid.
No rotting
joist
or
members.
any issues?
Not at this time.
Okay, good. Infestation or anything like
Nope.
that? Good.
So by going with a composite, do you use a like a screw or a bolt instead of a nail? And do we have like less concern about pop-ups? I know that's something that we've had with some of the wooden boards over the years.
Yep. With the composite, we screw it down. There's actually a composite screw that has a coarse thread that is used to go into the joist material. And then at the very head of it is a very fine cupping of the screw that holds the additional holding power for the composite board. A typical wood screw will have a smooth shaft of X number of centimeters from the head down to the threads. A composite screw does not have that. The screw that I would use on this would be, for lack of a better term, be like a finish head. We would countersink them just a little bit into the composite, and it doesn't totally wrap around it like a wood would, but it does kind of fill in a little bit, and they pretty much become invisible. But you'll see the nail pattern, but you won't see the heads.
Mm-hmm.
At the Wildlife Center, I built the boardwalks over there for them, and those were all composite decks, and they were built with 1x composites. And if you was to go out there on a weekend and look at it, you will see how much those things have warped and how bouncy they are going through there. Because they put the stringers on 16-inch centers with that 1x composite, it's just not strong enough. The 4x12s and stuff that we have on these two bridges that we would do this on, they with that 4x12 joist gives us a very, not only a wide place to screw down to, but it gives us additional support underneath there. And then with the spacings, it gives us a very solid platform. Again, and we're using on this a 2x6 composite board that looks just like a 2x6 wood board. It's S4S, all square edge sides on it. It's no grooves on the bottom of it like you see on the 1x boards, etc. And that's what it stands. That also, speaking of the grooves, that's also what we'll do on the handrail. They make a 1x6 S4S. There's no grooves in it and stuff. It's a solid board. That's what we would put up there on top of the handrail for that top rail. Yeah, it's that's pretty much why, looking at them and getting the confirmation that Wayne County will be doing Meridian Road. That's the bridge scope that I see as of the spring, which, what needs to be done, and an opportunity to go away to eliminate some maintenance costs in the future with the current price breaks.
That makes sense to me. I appreciate that info. So, I mean, in summary, it looks like you're saying again, you focus in on the two bridges south on the southern end of the island, Meridian and Grow Road, with Grow Road doing composite decking and composite handrail. So the only thing that would be left.
Composite top rail only, Brian.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to think that we're doing a whole composite railing on there. No, we're just doing that top rail that takes the most beating.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. So I would say the rest of the railing would stay wood, so we'd still be staining that. But the top rail and the deck board would be composite on that one, and then the Meridian Bridge we would just be doing some staining on that.
Staining, yeah, and some touch up on the top rail.
Okay.
On the Thoroughfare Bridge, since it will be open this year, there is no quote unquote maintenance to do on it in its scale. But when I did walk it, there's a couple top rails that are splintered off and stuff. I would go over there, take a screw, tack it back down, hit it with a little sander or something, just to make sure that it's not a sharp edge or a sliver for a kid to jam into their hands if they happen to do that. That bridge, that railing's so high that I think most kids don't even touch the thing, but it's still there. And then one more thing to look at into the future on the Thoroughfare Canal. When I originally built that back in '95, we had boardwalks on both sides of Meridian of the Thoroughfare Canal. When the sewer went in, they eliminated the south boardwalk, and they backfilled and graded a hill right up to it, and they paved it. And then they reused the railing that was on the boardwalk and kind of stuck it back up there, which is a little wobbly, and there's really no way to really secure that any better. But we lived with it for these years. But looking at that and looking what I'm doing around the country in Oakland County and Macomb County and stuff, when we got a guardrail next to a bike path, with a lot of times what they're doing on the backside of the post, we're just putting a rub rail, a 2x12 attached to the back of the post. When I looked at the Thoroughfare Bridge, I noticed that that guardrail is far enough off of the bike path for a large portion of that rail that we don't need anything. And then from a portion from where the rail posts are attached to the guardrail post back to where I would say we don't need it anymore, there's already a guardrail reverse installed. So there's a guardrail, galvanized guardrail on both sides of that post. So what I would suggest when we do address the Thoroughfare Bridge in 2023 is that the railing, or when Wayne County does, negotiate some type of credit or something with them, eliminate that railing coming up to that point of the first attachment to the guardrail post, equal distance on both east and west of the pathway, and everything south of that, get rid of that railing. And I think we're saving another, probably 250, 300 feet of railing that we won't have to maintain. Because the grass slope on the east side, it's a grass slope. It's not a hazard anymore to have a rail there. It's not an elevated boardwalk that the kid could ride off the edge and have a fall. Now we just have a grass hill there as grass slope. And so it's not the big detrimental thing there that we need to keep. Something to consider. We have a year or so to look at that, but it may be a way to, again, cut down on our maintenance costs on this thing.
That's good to know. And I might need to, talk with you a little bit more about it. It's like you're doing an effective job with communicating, but a very visual person. So, learning about a little more of those details would be helpful. And I know that probably work with DPS, since I'm sure that they're coordinating with Wayne County and the bridge project to see, again, what Wayne County might be doing that as far as they might be doing as part of their project that, addresses the bridge. Because I know most road agencies these days are looking at complete streets, and when it makes sense to that you're providing bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. I know, for example, Wayne County just put in sidewalks on the new Meso Island bridge, south of here, on the southern end of the island. So I would think that they might be doing something. So it'd be good to coordinate with them to learn what they're planning to do. And Wes, like you said, maybe there's some potential for some tweaks in the what they're planning to do to help save us on maintenance costs.
I really hope that on the bridge itself, where we have the railing attached to the concrete abutment next to overlooking the water, and then to the guardrails on the roadside, that with their new design they put in something that actually will eliminate that railing. And if that's the case, we might be looking in a pretty good shape coming down through there. Where the only railing we will be dealing with is the elevated boardwalk on the pilings. Because I'm sure they're not going to be real happy if they put in a new bridge and I come in, or they have to come in and start drilling holes in their new concrete to put in the attached wooden posts to it.
Yeah. So I think maybe just between now and I guess the next couple of months is do a little more detective work with DPS and others to learn about what they're planning to do and see how we can coordinate on that.
Right, and I'll be happy to meet anybody they want out there to talk about the rub rail versus guardrail on the road side of the railing.
Carl,
Yes.
You have a question?
One point on that, I know when we were putting in the license plate reader, pardon me, could not do anything with the Wayne County bridge. They would not let you put a light bulb, a bumper sticker, or anything on that bridge. So I think that's something that we really need to look at closely. Wes, not disagreeing with you. I like the idea of saving money. That has got a lot of interest, but the question is whether or not we can integrate that into the Wayne County bridge, because they are rather possessive and understandable about that. So I think that's something that we need to work with Derek on that and get some kind of an idea what we can do and what we cannot do. But I like the idea.
Right. I mean, I'm sure they're going to address some type of barrier between the bike path and the road, where the path and the only space is the guardrail itself. And if a kid's on a bike, they could theoretically flip right over. There is no room for error in that one section. So hopefully when they rebuild the bridge, they take that into account.
Great. So Wes, I know I haven't been able to look over what you sent in any detail, but I know you threw out a number of saying, hey, it's only $4,000 more for composite on the Grow Road Bridge. So that comes into effect that, I'm guessing that this, the work itemized, over here, sorry, not itemized, but the total would probably exceed $5,000. Does that seem correct?
Yeah, it would exceed 5,000.
Okay. It's my understanding that the township wishes to try and put together bid packages, for anything over $5,000. Is that correct, Carl?
Okay.
Yeah, he's muted, but he's nodding.
It is correct.
So, I mean, it sounds like we'll need to work with DPS or work with Rains or somebody in order to put that together.
I'll be happy to give you guys a quote on your bid package once you put it together.
Perfect.
Not a problem. But here's some ideas to think about or how to do it. The composite wood scenario right now, I got that pricing late yesterday afternoon. So that's current pricing. How this market falls, I don't know, depending on what happens. That increase or decrease of that differential will change. I mean, I'm not saying you need a boom, boom, boom. I'm just, want you guys to realize that this is not something that can be guaranteed 3 months down the road. That window may not be there again.
I understood. We appreciate all of the help that you've given us, and even your time tonight explaining this and doing the surveying. So our hands are kind of tied in regard. It's like this is as far as the procedure, but we're hoping that we can get that out quickly, and we hope that we have a friendly person such as yourself helping work on the project. With that, Carl, would you be able to work with DPS or with others in order to try and fast track something as far as potentially putting bids out for the bridge?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Perhaps when we get a better idea of what Wayne County is going to do. And I know that Derek has been very active in some of the programs. We have a good tradition of Groseal and Wayne County on some of the projects there, sewer and water, where there will be matching funds and things of that nature. So I know there is a very good relationship, and I'm hoping that that continues with this project, because it does look like there's some substantial savings. So.
Right, and we have over a year to work with Wayne County on the thoroughfare. We're not touching that in this maintenance cycle. The main thing right now is since they want to go out for bid, is to get the package put together so we can solidify and nail down some prices for the Grow Road Bridge.
Yeah, that would be the one we need to work on, and more time sensitive in that regard because of the pricing. Okay. Great. Thank you, Wes, for all of the information. I appreciate you taking the time tonight. You're more than welcome to stay on, but I completely understand if you'd like to sign off and go enjoy your evening.
That's not a problem. I'll stick around for a little bit just in case something else comes up that you need to ask me something about. Otherwise, yeah, I'll probably cut out a little bit early. Watch a basketball game.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks again, Wes. So I assume there was no other questions for Wes in regards to his assessment of the bridges. Alan, Christine?
No, none.
Great, thanks. Move on over here. Let's see here, make sure. Yep. So other items in regards to bicycle pedestrian infrastructure and maintenance is we usually talk about other things that are not specifically bike paths. So in the past we've talked about how the wide shoulders effectively extend people walking and biking along East River and some of the other roadways. There's extensive sidewalk network in some of our neighborhoods. And we've been talking a little bit about the sidewalks, and even though we understand that they're not in our domain, we're not responsible for these. We don't want them to be orphaned. So it's like if there's specific issues with any of these things, we can identify those issues and get them to the most appropriate contacts within the township. So with that, I don't know of anything specific with the sidewalks, except for, Carl, I know that we were thinking about maybe just doing an inventory to see where we are as far as ADA and see what percentage of our sidewalks are in good shape versus might need to do some spot replacement or other types of repairs in the future.
I think the good news is that many of the sidewalks that we do have are in comparatively new and good shape. If you look at the sidewalks that were put in as part of the Safe Sidewalks to Schools program, Manchester, those sidewalks look pretty good. You look at some of the sidewalks, I believe, on Burning Bush, Berkshire, up by the Catholic Church there, those are comparatively new and seem to be in good shape. My recollection is that the biggest threat to a sidewalk is going to be either salt, which doesn't seem to be coming as a problem right now, or trees, where the roots will be lifting up the flags of concrete. And my understanding from walking many of the sidewalks last year during my reelection effort was that I did not see anything that looked to be out of the norm. If we see something, then maybe we make the appropriate phone call. But right now, they all look very good right now, and I did not see any areas there that made any sense. And I walked miles on those sidewalks, so did not see any obvious hazards or anything like that. I'm certainly not an engineer or a specialist, but you don't have to be in order to see where there's roots that are damaging, lifting up, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I could tell you in my neighborhood, which is, one of the oldest neighborhoods that does have sidewalks. Most of the homes were built back in the 60s. And, during that time period, they're probably, trying to get a lot of vegetation quite quickly. And so some of the choices and species for trees were, silver maples. And those have extensive roots that are up by the surface. So I can tell you on Knudsen and H. Sale Jackson and Concord, some of Canterbury, Glengarry, those neighborhoods, that there are, some flags that are definitely out of scope. But I would agree with you that in general, if you're looking at the whole picture of the system, it's not like we're looking at like a huge cost to fix, 90% of our network or anything like that. But there are some offending ones that would be good to potentially, look at. And what I could do is just, spot some of those and send them on to DPS or to others within the township. But I guess in summary, to anyone that's watching at home or any of us here on the commission, is if you see something, either let us know or let others know within the township, and so that way we can get it taken care of. So with that, has anyone been out on the roads, like as far as the wide shoulders? Is there any maintenance that needs to be done on those? I know some in the past, former commissioners, and you'd ride over in that area and say, hey, we really could use some sweeping of the path after the winter, because not the path, the wide shoulder, because of a lot of the road aggregate or salt or other items that just make its way out over there and can be hazards in that regard. So just be on the lookout, and that way again we can communicate that information.
I have a non-bike path item question.
Sure.
In regards to the middle school that is just now going back to 100% face-to-face, and there's no buses. And so I think we'd want to encourage kids to ride their bikes to school or to walk. But East River, it's not really safe right there with all of the cars and the lack of a shoulder. Are we able to at least maybe get some police presence or something? Can we encourage the police to maybe come there and help out with some traffic direction, especially as the weather gets warm and kids are coming to school when it might still be dark in the morning?
I think we could talk with the police department to see what their plans are. I know they've already been at Park Lane and I believe probably Meridian as well, before the kids were going back. So we can see if they have any plans in that regard, because I know there'll be more folks. But one thing I will add is that we have reached out to Principal Whitehouse over the middle school in the past, and he did a great job of, he already knew that people were already walking and biking when back in the fall, and he realized that the way the circulation was going, that the back half of the people were wrapping around the back of the school, back by the administration building. And, it was a hazard for people that were taking the path between the high school and the middle school. And so he actually, in the afternoons, closes that down. And so that way only, kids, walking and biking can actually, you walk back there. The parking lot is closed in that regards to motor vehicles. So all the traffic is up near the front, which is great. My two children, I've got a 7th grader and a 5th grader. And since they're together now, when the weather's been nice, they've been, going from the middle school, walking down to Macomb Street. And so enjoying a little bit of time in Macomb Street. Sometimes I'm picking them up over by Lions Park. other times to let them, walk the bike path back to our house. So I definitely encourage, parents as well as, the children that are out there to, maybe try to stay off of East River, because just like you said, it's a hazard to begin with. And then with the additional traffic, it's going to be even more of an issue right now. And definitely, try to find those alternative routes until we can actually get something better out on East River. So, Carl, do you feel comfortable in reaching out to the police chief about the traffic police over there, or would you like me to do that?
No, I can ask Chief Harden to take a look at the traffic patterns there. I found him to be very responsive. He would, I'm sure, do that. On my way to work, I typically drive Meridian to Grow Road, and I see that there's a vehicle there that is trying to control the presence. And again, that's an elementary school. Christine is absolutely right, though. You'll remember a conversation that we had at a commission meeting about a year ago where Rebecca was asking about, she lived around the Church Road, Park Lane area, and HCL Jackson generally in that area, and was somewhat discouraged that there was no solid, easy way for her children to get to the schools there without going on East River and even Ferry Road. And those were rather unacceptable for a lot of traffic reasons. So they were taking the bike path to Macomb Street and then coming down Macomb, but then you have all the bus traffic and that. But the good news is you have the sidewalks. The better news is that we are very close to completing. We have a rough trail right now, but completing the reconnect between Ferry and Gage. So Brian, when you talk about going from your area, which is probably a third of a mile north of Gage and that trailhead, we expect that that's going to be done within the next month with a finished grade for most of the trail. And then we start to look at going over the swale, and that's going to be a little more difficulty down there with placement of some pipes, corrugated pipes and co-pipe. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a much better trail that will allow for the passage on that. I don't know about riding a bicycle in there on wood chips and things like that. That strikes me as a bit maybe a risky move, but on the other hand, walking should not be a problem there. So Christine, it's not a perfect answer, but it's progress. And I will follow up with the chief on the traffic there with the schools, all of the schools, not just Park Lane and Meridian, but everywhere where we have schools, and see what we can do.
Carl, when did you say that the Ferry Trail 2.0 will be ready for walking on?
Looking at probably in about a month. I've walked on it. There are a number of ruts from the equipment that went through and spread chips and dropped logs. The trail is really pretty good shape right now. It has been so dry, but we have just a dressing right now of wood chips on it. You would like to see, in my opinion, and from what I've seen with other trails, something that's several inches more deep, but right now it's easily walkable. But when we start to get the spring rains, there's fortunately no snow melt, but when we get the spring rains, that swale drains probably somewhere between 75 and 100 acres. And that water goes down into the swale and it backs up a little bit. So there are issues with drainage and things like that, which require us to raise with a pipe to get you above that wet area. But I've asked John Keim also to take a look at that, and he'll probably go out this week, if not early next week, depending upon his schedule, so that we can make the finish dressings on that and have a drain there that works and would be safe to cross. So I'm anticipating that'll be done perhaps by the end of April. I would look at maybe 4 to 6 weeks on that.
Do you know if you're doing an event to, I guess, a grand opening as far as it's concerned?
I'd love to have something to advertise that as a return to where we were 2 years ago. But right now we're focused on going ahead and getting the trail done, and a ribbon cutting, hey, that might be in the offing. So we'll keep you posted on that. And but I do think that this is a good thing for the community. It reconnects the northeast part of the island to the bike path. We have a bike path that runs west of Thoroughfare. We really don't have anything there that runs east of Thoroughfare, and you've got probably a third of the island that doesn't have a lot of access to that. So when you take that connector, it's not a perfect match with Lowry and Ferry, but that quickly gets you back to the main trail that runs like a spine across the island, and what we've been talking about with West tonight with the bridge over Thoroughfare. And it's a good project, and it's going to reconnect. It's not just limited to people that are in the immediate area. It's something everybody can use now to reconnect. And I still see a lot of traffic on the bicycle path along Meridian. So it's all good.
That's great. And just to recap, you said that there's improvements. Is the improvements for like wood chips and such going all the way back to Gage? Or is it only going like halfway back?
You know, there was a significant amount of rutting that occurred in the trail as a result of water runoff. And you'll probably recall, Brian, that in some places there was a cut that was 12 or 14 inches. And when I went back there and walked it to inspect it and do my due diligence, I brought to the attention of John Keim and the DPS, and John was very quick about taking a look at it and saying, yeah, this is a problem, and threw a lot of gravel in there, filled the rut. It looks a lot better. It's much safer to walk on. That's all good. And once we get through the spring, we're going to assess and what else needs to be done with that path. Some of it, the vast majority of it, once you get probably about 500-600 feet in from Gage, the elevation on the trail becomes rather significant. So there's no water issues, no drainage issues. And it is high and dry and runs along a crest, if you will, east-west. So when you make that 90-degree turn, because the old trail was cut off, but when you make that 90-degree turn and start going east, and ultimately will reconnect with the Gage Ferry connector that we have now, that is high and dry, and there is nothing in there for the longest time. So putting wood chips down really isn't necessary, and it's an expense we could avoid, a cost that doesn't need to be done. But there has been some work done on the trail on the very north end, and as well as the new connector on the south end. So it's all good.
What I want to hear, Carl, because yeah, I mean, I'm selfish in this regard, but I get, as you alluded to, that's my neighborhood, and yeah, for the longest time, you know, that's the way that we access the paths, and that's like the most efficient way for us to get to Macomb Street. And so while we understand, you know, the property owners, you know, building a home and not wanting to have you know, people, you know, going through that trail continuing through there, it was a disappointment because, you know, we were cut off. So it's great to see that it's back. And that was my one concern, is like by Gage Road, that first couple hundred feet or so, it can get really messy in there. And then, you know, once you're in there, it starts to go up in the elevation, then you're good. So glad to hear that was taken care of as well. And I'm looking forward to, you know, going there with my family and, you know, enjoying the new trail.
Well, the two things, one is that the new homeowner there bought the property. It was a private sale, never went on the market, so the township never had a chance to even consider purchase. But the old trail was located on what proved to be a very good grade. There was gravel there, and it was also elevated. But when the new owner came in and put two houses there, he went, as I understand it, and again, that's from what I've heard from various people there, is that he went as far west to build as he could. to stay from that trail, but because of wetlands and woodlands and all the various concerns, as far as he went, and he went as far as he could, that trail still came to within about 3 feet of his garage, which I don't think any of us would appreciate. So we ended up buying the property for Mr. Tittle, and the neighbor to the west, Mr. Toth, has just been very supportive, and I've had a number of very good exchanges with him, and he's donated some materials for us. So fingers crossed, it's good for everybody. And the second thing is, Brian, if you're using the trail, we're going to put a toll box up for you.
All right. I can put in my ball of lint for my pockets.
Thank you for your support too.
No, thank you for all your work on this. I greatly appreciate it. Next item under the planning related activities would be signage and the GIS inventory. I don't have anything specifically to report on that. I know last time I heard, as far as signage was concerned, John was going to be looking into what we had in the shop in regards to signs to see what's available in order to consider as far as what we might put back up and other things that we might take down. But I have not heard anything on that front. Have you?
No, sir. I will be talking to John, as I indicated, probably next week with respect to the trail, and I will talk to him about that again. And Derek may even have some ideas. I think I talked to Derek about that, and they're aware that we're looking at it, that we need it. Just a lot of things this time of year when you start putting all of those winter toys away and you're starting to deal with new things. We're going to be cutting lawn here in another 5-6 weeks, so a lot to do.
Guys, yeah, I did talk to John about the signage. I think Carl had maybe asked me about stop signs, and I think John's answer to that was that they didn't have anything in stock. We do have some pretty good contacts with some vendors that do provide signage at a very competitive price. If you gave me a list of what you're looking for, we can place that order on your behalf and get those ordered for you if you just tell me what size and what type of signs you want.
Great. So Carl, I think we got our homework to get Derek that list.
We should invite Derek more often. Thank you, Derek.
You're welcome.
Great. Last items under other related activities is bike path enhancements. I know that we did have an Eagle Scout that was working on putting in a bike Fixit station near the public safety building. I don't think we have any updates on that. Doggy pots, those are the doggy refuse bags, I guess you could say, that they're put into specific kiosks along the trail. And so we do have that as one. If anyone sees that they're run out of bags, let us know and we can get those actually refilled. But has there been any other potential enhancements that people have reached out to us about, like benches or water fountains or anything else that would potentially enhance the path? Hearing none, we can move on. Next item on the agenda is about safety projects. So I know that we have not been able to do much as far as safety projects in general with crossing of Meridian Road. I know that we've reached out to the police chief, and the police were able to put up additional beacons over at the Meridian and Ferry Road intersection because of the higher traffic and the lack of gaps along the area. But I think in the long run, we still should be looking at potentially doing some sort of more formalized protected crossing. And I know that generally ballpark, we're probably talking about $100,000 or more in order to put up some form of a signal in that area. But I just want to let folks know that this is still on our radar. I know if we were able to identify funding for it, I think that would be one of the first things that we would like to try and accomplish. But I guess I would just ask, and maybe if we don't have the answer, we can go back to the township and learn, is that could this be considered part of the maintenance budget in regards to, it's not expanding the system at all, it's just making it safer for people along the path. And so maybe that could be, it's part of the project. And if we're saving money on the ferry road, sorry, not the ferry road, on the thoroughfare bridge, maybe that's something that we could actually apply towards a better crossing, especially at Ferry Road and Meridian. Does anyone have any thoughts on that from their perspective before we ask the township officials about it?
I have a little bit of concern about our order of operation. I think that building off of the mindset that safety has to come first, this ties in with that. And I think that this should be a priority for us simply based on the fact that it's a huge safety issue. And I think that should be our first priority over just enhancement. This is evolution also of traffic control. Years ago, it was just a stop sign. Now we have more options. We have the LED lighting, we have reflective painting, reflective board we can put on the post underneath the stop sign. Trenton uses this in a lot of their neighborhoods. It's very effective. And I think that we need to be focused on the safety aspect above all else.
Thanks for that, Al. I mean, it sounds like in your interpretation, again, you're not a lawyer, you're not a professional in this regard, but in your humble opinion, you think that our maintenance costs could potentially apply for be used for this type of project.
Absolutely. Just in the sheer change of how things are done, a stop sign 20 years ago was what you put up. That was technology at that time. Now we have enhancements that are something we would put in today if we originally put that stop sign in. And I think it's not making improvements. It's just going with the current standard of whatever safety device we're using.
Great. Thank you, Al. Christine, how do you feel?
I was going to say, I don't know if you've ever seen this before. We were on vacation in a beach town. I think it was in Florida. And there was a very busy road crossing. And they had something set up on one side of the crossing where they just had like these stop signs. They were like flags. So when you approached the crossing, you took one of those stop signs and held it up to cross, and you walked across the street, and people paid attention because you were holding the sign. And then at the other side of the street, there was another place to put the stop sign. And people were very, no one was taking the signs or anything. People were using it appropriately. And it did catch your attention as a driver, because here's someone with a big stop sign, and it was, it's probably very cost effective, but that was the first time I saw that. And it was kind of neat.
Yeah, I haven't seen a stop sign, but I know that a lot of communities have tried the route of having little flags that people carry across, which it gets the same thing across as far as conspicuousness, but much less of a direct message in that regard. So, I mean, it'd be something to look into as far as, again, lighter, quicker, cheaper. I just wonder about the effectiveness, because I know the flags themselves aren't that effective in that regard, because, again, people have to be paying attention. And I know generally people pay attention to signals, but stop signs, not so much. I think we're all guilty of floating a stop sign in a neighborhood every once in a while. But I didn't say that, did I? No. Anyways, in regards to your opinion about the our dedicated millage that is for bike path maintenance, in your interpretation, would you be supportive of using that for a safety project? And what I'm trying to do is see if there's consensus from BPAC over here, and then from there we could go to the township and ask them for their interpretation. So this is not the end all be all. It's just making sure that, again, this isn't Brian Pollock or Carl Blotcher show, that this is BPAC, thinking about this in general. And if there's general consensus on that, then we can go and ask, hey, is this feasible? Is this something that would be considered a good a proper interpretation of the way the millage was written and could it be applied.
Yeah, I don't know what's allowed, but that sounds to me like a great idea. Mhm.
Great, thank you. Carl, do you feel the same, or do you have a different opinion on it? Okay, great. So I will talk to Ann, talk to Dale, and see what we can do in that front, because this has been going on for a while, and I think this is one thing that we haven't pursued yet. And so, hey, if there's a way that we can make it safer, let's do it.
Yeah, the big obstacle appears to be when we start going into, as Al said, new technology, what the cost of some of that is going to be. A light, we had talked about it, Meridian and Ferry as an example, and just to do some of the high-tech stuff, we can be looking at $50,000 for that. It's very well, and Brian, that's your wheelhouse, but that's not a small sum, but that also doesn't buy an awful lot either. It's very expensive. Yeah,
I mean, so there are different routes to go. Low tech, like Christine was saying, with flags, or rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are cheaper. But there's also hawk signals or full signals. And so again, if we can learn that we do have funding available to help apply for this, and then we could begin conversations with Wayne County to see what they would specifically allow in that regard. And hopefully we can get something done this year, and if not, maybe next year. Cool. Sorry about that. So next items are about some of the other projects that we've been working on. So in regards to the first project, this is the Gibraltar Bay Connector. So as folks know, we have our bike path that's on Meridian. We have a bike path on Grow that generally terminates right at East River. So if you're on the Grow Road path heading east, before you get to East River, you can see the service road with the airport over here. And so we've been in talks with the airport of at some point being able to utilize the north-south part of this airport road in order to provide a more primitive path that would be a bicycle and pedestrian connection to the Detroit International Wildlife Refuge, the Gibraltar Bay unit. And so we're looking for funding in order to be able to move a fence, because the airport is in general support of that, as long as we can come up with the funds in order to move that fence and do any improvements to that roadway. But right now we're shopping around to see where we can come up with those funds, and we're at least looking at about $70,000 in order to move that fence. I don't have any additional activity to report on that. Carl or anyone else, if you have activity, please feel free to share it with the commission.
I have nothing.
All right, hearing none, move on. Bellevue Connector. So this is a part that we're doing in partnership with the Downriver Linked Greenways, and they're helping us with funding that they got through the Ralph Wilson Foundation. This is part of the Iron Bell Trail, which is a statewide effort that connects Metro Detroit with the western part of Michigan's UP. And so this is a spur that goes off of Jefferson, and the ultimate goal on the spur is going down Macomb Street and connecting to the overlook on that regards. So we, working with the Downriver Link Greenways, they've been contracting with PEA, which is a consultant group, to do the preliminary engineering and scoping for a sidewalk that would connect to the existing attached sidewalk on the Free Bridge, snake down via the connector to West River, and then run on the east side of West River Road to connect to Water's Edge. And then from there, have a sidewalk on the north side of Bellevue that would run up to Meridian Road, and from there connect into our bike path system. And the thought is that there would be some Iron Bell trail markings and wayfinding signage along the way. So users that decide that they want to come check out Groseal, they could detour from Jefferson, go down Groseal Parkway, and they'd have the appropriate signage to know which path to go down, and maybe take a break over at Water's Edge and grab a meal over at Smokies on the Water, or carry on and patronize some of our businesses in the Macomb Street district. So again, we don't know the exact cost of that right now, but in order for them to continue work, there needs to be a signed memorandum of understanding, which I forwarded to all of you. And basically, it's just saying that we're in agreement in general with this route, and that should it prove feasible, and that's a more of a loose term. It's not committing us to anything. It's saying that, hey, it's feasible from an engineering perspective. So now you're on the hook. You have to build this. But if we decide that this looks good to us, that we will try to figure out how to actually build the thing in partnership with the Downriver Link Greenways and other partners. And so they would be able to help us with securing other grants. The Memorandum of Understanding is basically saying that while this grant covers the engineering and design of this, it doesn't cover the actual construction. So I don't know if anyone had a chance to read the MOU, or if you want me to bring it up so we can look at it in more details together. Thoughts?
Brian, I read it and I was quite impressed with it. I'm happy to say that that's a huge step forward. It may not be a complete package, but we had to clear this hurdle before we started on this project, and I'm super excited about it.
Great to hear, Al. Christine, did you have a chance to read it, or would you like me to bring it up now?
You don't need to bring it up. I did look over it. I'll look over it more after the meeting. So what I saw looks good. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess what I was looking to do based on this as an action item is, have this commission recommend to the township board that they sign the MOU. So if you feel comfortable with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to do that just now. But if there's need for additional discussion, we can do that.
I support it, Brian.
Great.
I agree.
Good.
Hearing that, I'll make the motion that we recommend to the township board that they sign the MOU with the Downriver Link Greenways in order to proceed with the investigation of the Bellevue Connector. Is there a second?
I second it.
Alan, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Great. Thank you, everyone, in that regard. So we'll let the township board know, and if they have questions, we can come and talk to them about that. I believe we're entering the end of our presentation over here today. I stand corrected. There's a few items I just wanted to go over and see if there was initial thoughts. So at our last meeting, I talked with all of you, and Carl and John were going to move forward with thinking about potential improvements as it relates to a millage if we were to entertain investigate a millage in the future. So I know that many of us have worked with people over the years as part of the commission, or that we've been in contact with other people in regards to public outreach and saying, hey, we really need a bike path here. We really need improvements over here. And some of that is spilling over into actual projects, but other ones have not, because hey, we don't have the capital in order to do that. And in order to make a better assessment of what we need in order to make some of this stuff happen, we need to, one, identify the projects that we potentially would want to consider, as well as attach dollar figures to those. So while I don't want to go into any detail, I did want to say that I would think that from my perspective, if we were looking at, again, a perfect world scenario where We're not limited specifically by the millage yet or by a certain dollar amount or anything like that. I would think that we would want to address all the safety concerns as far as crossings along the Meridian path, that we would want to still investigate a church road sidewalk to be able to connect to the path system. If that's not possible, or maybe in addition to it, having the secondary connection along the Anderson Cut, as it's been called. There's the road Anderson that basically it connects on one side with Meridian, and it dead ends into a little bit of a tree open space before connecting to a platted but not named road that connects right into thoroughfare. That's a potential another access point to the system. And additionally, some people take thoroughfare south and cross Meridian at thoroughfare in order to connect with the bike paths. So investigating if one or those others makes sense, especially if we can't get something on Church Road. East River is the one that we always hear about in regards to there needs to be something on there. I think in general, East River is pretty large. We might not be able to do something along the entirety of East River, but I think like the biggest part that we would want to be connecting is we have a bike path on Horse Mill Road that turns into East River. So starting at the north end, it might make sense to make some sort of connection with that, and then get people at least to Sunrise Park or Macomb Street, because we need to connect the neighborhoods, need to connect the middle school, as well as the Macomb Street district. And with the addition of Sunrise Park, it might be nice to have better access to that by walking or biking. We've already talked about the Gibraltar Bay Connector. In the past, we've talked about sidewalks on Park Lane, south of Macomb Street. So they go actually they go all the way to Grosio Parkway, but on the other side of Grosio Parkway, there's nothing over there. And if you're trying to connect to Centennial, why am I saying Centennial? Centennial Farm, you don't have a dedicated facility. So you're either walking in the road, or you're walking in the grass, or riding in the road. We've talked about sign improvements and pavement markings. And of course, there's the general maintenance that we have to do as far as asphalt replacement. While again, not part of BPAC, keeping in mind about other sidewalk costs that might be a part, again, good information to have. And since Carl brought up about the Ferry Trail 2.0, that brought up that probably should be added to this list is a connection on Ferry Road to either get you to Park Lane or to the bike path. So that way people have direct access and aren't walking on Ferry Road once they get off the trail itself. So I'm not looking for a definitive answer like yes, this is complete, but I just wanted to prime the pump as far as people thinking about their ideas. See if this makes sense to them, if there's things that we should add, and at a future meeting we can go over more details. But at least with this list over here, you kind of have an idea of what we should probably start looking at as far as attaching, again, ballpark estimates of what some of these projects might cost. Is there questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, let's move on. I apologize. I know we're running a little late here. As far as education and encouragement, Christine, has there been any activity in regards to either a bicycling safety class or bike to school day?
I've not heard from Rebecca about walk or bike to school day. I contacted the bike shops and left messages. Their hours are really limited lately. They're only open from something like 12 to 4 or 10 to 4 most days, closed on Sundays. So when I had time to call on a Saturday, there was no one there that I could talk to that knew. So waiting for a call back, and I'll call back again Saturday to see if I can find someone who can help us out with the safety class.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I went into L. Petrie's this past weekend, and I was just wanted to get a ballpark estimate if I brought in my bike as far as how long it would take for them to repair. The good news was they said, oh yeah, we could have it done probably by the first week of April. So not too bad, just a couple weeks. But I was shocked to see that they only had maybe a dozen bikes for sale inside the shop, even though the shop was full, but the shop was actually full with everybody's repairs. So it's like the entire front of the store was, roped off with all of these bicycles that were in for repairs. And they said the entire back was also full as well. So my guess is that they're probably pretty slammed with all of these repairs right now and might not have, the extra capacity for answering the phones. But I do encourage you to continue reaching out, and hopefully we can make that connection. Last item I have on the agenda is something that's that we need to specifically do each year. Mr. Brian Friel had mentioned that we're supposed to have all of our meetings, basically, scheduled in advance. This does not mean that we have to have each meeting every month, but if we need to cancel one, we can. But the point is, from a public's perspective in the Opens Meetings Act, that the public should be able to understand generally when we are going to be meeting. So this should be nothing new, but we meet every third Thursday of the month. And so I've itemized those third Thursdays for starting with this March 18th and running through February of 2022. So unless there's somebody, if we feel like we should be changing, I'm just looking for a simple action item in order to approve this tentative meeting schedule for fiscal year, for our year of 2021 and 2022.
I move to adopt the meeting schedule as presented.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All right. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Last before adjournment would be reports. So, Carl, is there anything that you'd like to report back to us, from the Township Board's perspective?
Well, I just, we submitted your name to continue on another year as the chair, and that should be done on Monday, and would look forward to serving with you for another year, Brian. I think you do a good job, and there's a lot of work to be done yet.
Well, thank you, Carl. I mean, it's a team effort, so I'm appreciative of everyone's time that they're taking to be a part of this, and we're stronger together in that front.
One question that does come up with the resignation of Dan Jaster, that takes us down to a commission of 6. Brian, I think it's fair to say that you look to build a consensus among commissioners before we make any decisions or recommendations. So normally an odd number would be desirable. But I think with the way that you approach consensus building and decision making, I don't know that that is absolutely necessary. I do appreciate that with 7 people, a quorum is 4. If we were to drop down to 6 or even to 5 at some point, this is an organic process, but if we were to drop down to 5, a quorum is 3 then. And I don't know where that takes us, but I think that we should probably consider, each of us consider, maybe at the next meeting discuss the size of the commission, if we want to stay at 6 or if we want to look for somebody, or we're willing to continue at 6 and even drop down to 5 at some point in the future if there's a resignation. But I think that's something that should be discussed at the next meeting.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, and thank you for bringing it up. I was going to talk about Dan in a minute, and that I'll still do that, but I will say that from my opinion, I think that it'd be good not to fill Dan's position unless there's somebody that's really chomping on the bit to join us, which I don't think there is. And I think that we can carry on as a smaller group in that regard, but I'm not. Given that we still have 6 members on here, I personally don't feel comfortable, eliminating another person this time just for the sake of being at an odd number. Should it happen naturally, or things out of our control, well, so be it. But my opinion, and that's just my opinion, and I'd be happy to talk about it, let everyone think about it, and we can make an action item on it in our next meeting. But I would prefer to stay at 6 for right now.
And the last part of my report would be, again, a statement that I think that we are all going to miss Dan. He brought a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of work. I remember when I first met him, the enthusiasm that he showed and the dedication. And he is now moving over to West River Yacht and sailing, or whatever the club is there. I don't remember exactly, but he's going to be moving up the ranks there eventually to Commodore. So their gain is our loss. And I really respect the work that he did. I enjoyed working with him. I think we all did. And he's going to be greatly missed because of the work that he did.
Yes, sir. I completely agree with that. And I thank you for bringing it up, because you put it more elegantly than I can. But with that, my motion was going to be to recognize Dan Jaster for his years of service with BPAC, and then to I'm going to try and get him a little certificate as a walk and roll award for all of his effort over the years. So I'm looking for a second on that.
I will second that gladly.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And again, Dan, if you're watching, thank you for your services. We appreciate them. The only thing I have left to report under the chair's report is that, again, from a township perspective, I know that the township is looking to make sure that all commissioners are fully participating within their commissions or committees. And so I encourage everyone to do their best in order to come to our meetings. And I believe that they might be enacting a rule in regards to, if you miss more than 3 meetings in a given year, that they might remove you. So again, that's beyond anyone on our commission over here. As Carl mentioned, we try to work with consensus and we try to be as flexible as possible. But those are the rules. And so again, we just want to encourage everyone to know about them and encourage everyone to fully participate whenever they can. So with that, is there any other items that need to be brought up before we make an adjournment? Oh, yes, Carl.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Derek Thiel if he has anything he wants to add, if he has any questions. The same thing with Wes. And as importantly, I'd like to thank both of the gentlemen for hanging here with us for an hour and a half, and see if there's anything that they want to bring up, they want to discuss, they want us to consider. And that would be my end.
Wes, you can go ahead if you want. If Wes doesn't have anything, I know, Brian, you had mentioned to me, and you had forwarded along a request to do an application for a grant, the Wilson grant, and it was primarily for trail maintenance. And I know that we had some conversation about what that application would be for. We had looked at, the thoroughfare bridge, and obviously we're talking about doing that in 2022. There had been some talk about the Grow Road Bridge and applying for that. But if that's going to bid and we don't have a budget established for that, it's going to be a bit difficult to apply for a grant for that as well. And the other thing worth mentioning is the grant is due like on April 1st. So I did submit for information on how to apply and access to the grant system, but I haven't gotten anything back from that yet. So I know in the correspondence that we had gone through via email, I think, Brian, your suggestion maybe was to take a look at applying for the balance of the full depth replacements that you guys had from your 2019 project, and the potentially some seal coating or crack sealing for the remainder of the grant application. I think it was a 1-to-1 grant or something like that. And if you already had these dollars budgeted, as far as 100% cost responsibility from the account, obviously the 1-to-1 wouldn't be a problem. Anything that you would get would be beneficial above and beyond what had been planned, which was incurring the full cost. So I'm not going to promise that the grant will get in, just simply because we're working off of a pretty accelerated time schedule, with it being due on April 1st. And without yet having access to the system, I'm not sure what exactly the grant information that they're asking is, or whether or not even the project that we've narrowed this down to would qualify. And they might not allow a grant participation for a project that's already been approved and already partially done. So I'm not going to make any promises. All I can do is, say I'll look into it, and I can report back to see how that ended up turning out, if you'd like.
Yes, thank you for that, Derek. I appreciate it, because it's something that we definitely been talking about and I forgot to include. So appreciate you bringing that up. In regards to, if for some reason you don't hear back via email, I know Tom Wywoody is the person that's the major contact from the Community Foundation, which is the one that's facilitating the grant. I know it's kind of complicated that it's a Ralph Wilson grant, but it's through the Community Foundation, so it gets a little confusing. But point is, Community Foundation is doing the work. The funds come from Ralph Wilson. But if you don't have Tom's information, I can give it to you as far as his phone number or email. And he was more than willing to reach out to Dan Jaster to talk about the last grant that we did apply for. And my personal opinion is, let's try and get something in. At least get that remainder balance of $80,000. But if you think that there's something else, I trust your judgment in that regard. If you think there's a different way to go, or if you think it's not worth our effort to apply.
Well, and maybe it's if you're not able to apply for this round, if there's going to be subsequent application opportunities, as I think you guys probably take a look at the different projects you're going to be doing over the next couple of years, obviously that's going to be a resource that would be something, that you guys, I'm sure, would take advantage of. So.
Great. Thank you, Derek. Yeah, just let me know if you need anything from as far as like contact with Tom Wywoody.
All right. Thank you.
All right. With that, make a motion for adjournment. May I have a second?
I second it.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
All right. We close the meeting at 9:07 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Walk, bike, drive safe.
Thank you, Derek. Thanks, Wes.
Hi, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Brian.
Take care.